Welcome to the roast of Evan McMillan. I'm your host, Jeffrey Hawk, aka The Clown. We are here to roast one of DBD's most boring killers. Trapper is the face of Dead by Daylight, which is ironic because we've never really seen his face. That's because it's a face only a mother could love and a father could abuse into murdering a bunch of people. Most of us had the capacity to kill on our own. Evan needed peer pressure from his daddy. That's right, he needed a pep talk and a spanking. That abuse was a good thing, though. It prepared him for all the punishment he takes from survivors. The Trapper is one of the weakest killers in the realm. He's so weak he even hurts himself. Shin Diesel here even does all his own stunts. Evan, how do you step in your own traps when you're the one who places them? Do we have to add amnesia to your list of abilities? We have a few killers here to roast this guy harder than the survivors already do in the endgame chat. First up, we have the Wraith. What can I say about Philip? Well, the only thing worse than a killer without a power is a killer with a useless power. What's the point of turning invisible if you breathe like a 300-pound pug? If survivors can't see you, they'll definitely hear you coming with how hard you breathe. As one of the original killers, Philip probably has the most ammo out of all of us, so let's welcome him to the stage. Thank you, Jeffrey. Like the Trapper, our clown host doesn't have powers. He mixes concoctions to intoxicate them. Spill Cosby then tosses glass bottles at survivors. He's like an alcoholic huntress with the aim to match. The Hillbilly is also here. Max Thompson can sprint at full speed with a chainsaw in hand, which is scary until you realize that he's so inbred he can hardly see straight. It's that, or the fact that he was abused until his face resembled his ass. He can't even tell them apart most of the time. Then we have the Nurse. You want to talk about breathing? Her windpipe is as shriveled up as her legs are. That's just what happens when you're into choking, and it's your whole personality. But today, we're here to talk about the Trapper. Evan's most effective strategies involve the basement because it reminds Trapper mains of where they come from. Also, dragging survivors down there is the only way they get anyone to spend time with them. Seriously, you suck more than Clown does when fingers are involved. Maybe he's strongest down there because he's a miner. No, not the kind that Freddy Krueger loves. Trapper used to work the mines that his father ran, which means on top of being a below-average killer, he's a Nepo baby. Despite all of that and his lore, nothing can explain the fact that his power is bear traps. Unless there were bears in those mines, Trapper is just what happens when someone keeps going. Wouldn't it be cool if... You've got the mask of a B-movie horror villain, which begs the question, did Dredge handcraft that for you? You've also got metal spikes in your back, so I pity whoever does your prostate exams. And then you have bear traps and a machete, because you're all of horror's sloppy seconds. When he doesn't have any of his traps, he's about as useful as any of my perks. Without him, the face of the game would have to be old weathered face over there, or yours truly. We're all grateful for the Trapper. He reminds us to be humble. But also, he's been doing this longer than a lot of other killers. I'll pass it back to Musty the Clown. Thank you for that, Philip. At least if you were the face of DBD, we wouldn't have to see it that often. Our next roaster is someone I didn't even think was capable of speaking above a 3rd grade level. He's the bargain brand Bubba Sawyer. Please welcome the Hillbilly. Many people think that the clown changed his name to Jeffrey because he became a serial killer. The truth is, it's because his first name is actually Kenneth. I'd hide my face behind makeup too if I looked like you, buddy. Did y'all know that the Wraith's weapon is the spine of his boss? That's because he doesn't have his own spine. He's one of the only killers who wasn't an actual killer before the entity took him. Philip killed people without knowing it, so you could say most of them were accidents, just like he was. I can't imagine anyone would really want him. On the opposite end of the killer spectrum, we have the nurse. She can blink and down survivors before any gens get done, but she couldn't find her way out of the bag on her head. At least it's one less thing we have to look at. Everyone calls me a Leatherface clone, but we all know Trapper's a Jason ripoff. It's even more obvious now that he has a hockey mask cosmetic. But it's important to note that they still have their differences. For example, Jason had his mom, Evan had his abusive father, Jason has had a whole bunch of movies, Evan will have 4 minutes of screen time in the Dead by Daylight movie, Jason actually kills people. It's important to highlight these. The Trapper is so unoriginal that all of his cool cosmetics make him knockoff versions of other killers. Like I said, he has the hockey player skin that just makes him Jason without the personality. He has the Krampus skin, even though he doesn't have a big enough sack for it. And then he has the mining mask, but no pickaxe. And that just makes him the Bloody Valentine killer if he was a D-movie character. Trapper pretty much has to wear the mask because he looks like an angry thumb without it. He's got so much scrap metal in his back we could make another singularity. Make more sense if he worked in a scrapyard instead of a mine. At least then he'd have an excuse for recycling other killers' designs. And then, of course, there's the fact that he was in Hooked on You. People had the chance to date Trappy Gilmore. Seriously, his violence and temper were his only personality traits. A lot of people were fans of the fact that he wore a swimsuit. All it showed was that Trapper's below average in more ways than one. But there's a reason he's the mascot for the game. I don't know what that reason is, but other people seem to like him. Now for a killer who will never know the touch of another person, except through severed fingers. Take it away, Kenneth. Thank you, old Hick Donald. Finally, rounding out this roast is Sally Smithson. Sally is one of the few female killers whose feet people would pay not to see. Give it up for the nurse. Did you all know that the clown collects fingers? That's the only way he's ever gotten a woman's digits. That's crazy because he used to be an athlete. That also means he peaked in high school. Now look at him. He can't see his willy or bend over to look for it without coughing. The Wraith was also hooked on you. Philip, you were so insecure in that. I'd probably give you a pity fucking leave. It'd be a ding-dong ditch. Philip is also the only killer whose legs are skinnier than mine. He looks like a giant Q-tip someone set on fire. He smells like it too. Then we have the hillbilly. It must have been really hard having your father, uncle, and grandfather beat you, and for them all to be the same person. The only thing more shallow than my breathing is your gene pool. And speaking of daddy issues, Trapper probably could have solved his problem if he used the hex milk. Trapper has perks that make him carry survivors and break things faster. It almost makes up for the minutes you spend bending down to pick up and set traps, because you don't have an actual power. You would think that as a skilled hunter, he would at least be prepared to use all the tools at his disposal. But he doesn't even start with all of his traps. They're scattered across the map, and he has to pick them up like a disgruntled mother does with her kids' toys. Finally, he has Unnerving Presence, a perk to scare survivors off gens, because he can't do that on his own. Even without the perk, you could say his presence is unnerving. Seriously, it's like the teeth on your mask aren't even on speaking terms with each other. It's just making it uncomfortable for the rest of us. He's still the most well-known killer in the realm, if you don't count the licensed ones. I'll pass this back to Ronald O'Donnell. Now for our esteemed guest and roasty to share his rebuttal. The moment we've all been waiting for. Please welcome to the stage, Evan McMillan. Hey! Woo! Thank you, Meth Rogan. Thank you for the introduction and hosting this. So glad you could take a break from eating kids in Maine. You don't really clean up well. I can smell you all the way from up here, John Stained Gacy. Anyway, let's move on. Philip, I'd say something mean about your parents to roast them, but they already got roasted in the war that tore apart your country. What I will say about you is that you need to get lotion or something, because you're almost as ashy as they are. At least the family resemblance is still there. The hillbilly is one of the only killers with a close tooth-to-brain cell ratio. Whether that's because he was born that way or his parents made him that way is unknown. Billy compared me to Jason Voorhees, so it's only fair I do the same to him and Bubba. Bubba wears a mask, when Billy should. Bubba's got a pretty small mallet. Billy has a sledgehammer because he has to compensate. Finally, Bubba is big and strong, while Billy is wiry and twisted, just like his family tree. And now we come back to the nurse. Sally used to be married, but her husband died in an accident. I guess he couldn't wait long enough for a divorce. After that, she worked at the asylum, where she found her people. I think if the entity hadn't taken her, she'd have a home somewhere with a sign that says, "Live, laugh, lobotomy." You also seem like you'd be the type to yell at service workers, if it weren't for the bag on your head and the crushed windpipe. Maybe I'm not as strong in the trials as some of the other killers in the fog, but we're all in the same league, so think about what that says about you. Thank you all for coming and trashing my name. Here's to another year in the fog, and hopefully getting made for this nerf. Thank you so much for watching the roast of Evan McMillan. I hope you enjoyed the video. It was a lot of fun to write, plan out, and record. Let me know if you'd like to see more killer roasts, and who you would like to see in them. I hope you'll check out my other content as well, and consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you.